pants is a sin, but did they study the Hebrew first? Deuteronomy 22:5. Let's break that down in the original language so we know what the Most High was saying. That which pertains unto a man in the Hebrew is kala gabara. Kala means gear, vessels, tool, weapons, armor, and gabara means mighty man or warrior. So we put the phrase together, kala gabara, or that which pertains unto a man, means war gear. You don't believe me? 1 Samuel 17:39 and Genesis 27:3. We see kala refers to armor or weapons, not pants. Let's look at another verse that a lot of people use to say that we shouldn't wear pants as women. In Exodus 28:42, the priests were commanded to make linen breeches to go up under their tunic, because we see earlier in the book of Exodus, the priests were going up to the temple and their business was out because they were wearing tunics. The Paleo-Hebrew word used for breeches is makana, and it translates to a garment to cover and protect. So their undergarments were actually for modesty. With all that being said, all dresses and skirts are not modest, and all pants are not modest. But it is safe to say that women can wear pants. They say wearing pants is a sin, but did they study the Hebrew?
Hey, shalom, shalom, shalom lakam, which is peace unto you all. Hi, Rab Tawab La Atam, Za'achikam Yawam on Rachagador, Charlotte, which is good evening. This is your brother Yawan from the GMS camp in Charlotte. Nacham Atam Kaya, Hamalakat Hashamayim Kwara, repent ye for the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Call Halayim La La Abanawa Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shai Bahasham Rucha Hakwadash, Wa Mashana La Zakwanim Nawa, Wamala Akim Sharuchagador, which is all praises to our Father Yahweh, which means he exists. Bahasham in the name Yahweh Shai delivers. And double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone. This is Dabar Yam, Deuteronomy chapter 22, and we'll give verse 5. And it says, the woman shall not wear that which pertaineth unto a man, neither shall a man put on a woman's garment. For all that do so are an abomination unto the Lord thy power. All right, and ultimately, Eve, for one, that's why the scriptures say, let the woman learn in subjection, you see, because for one, she was pronouncing those words wrong. She said kala, which that's a whole totally different word. The actual word that she was reading was kalaya. And I'm going to actually get that in this verse. All right. It says kalaya. All right. And she said that it went into to pretty much tools, implements, which it does, utensils, as well as vessels. All right, but then also it says dress. All right, so when we break this word down, going back, it says la'a, yahaya, kalaya, gabar. She said gabara, but it would be gabar, ayol, asha, wala'a, yalabash, gabar, shamalat, asha, kaya, tawa aibat, yahawa, alayaka, call Aisha, Allah. All right. And so pretty much, all right, she said kala gabara, which it would be, it's these two right here. All right, it's kalaya gabar, all right, which kalaya would go into the dress of a man, or how a man would dress. And ultimately that's going into, the pants, all right, because men wear the pants. That's where they get the term for the men wear the pants in a relationship, or who wears the pants, So I'm gonna read that back. This is Dabar Yam, Deuteronomy chapter 22 and verse 5. It says, the woman shall not wear that which pertaineth unto a man, neither shall a man put on a woman's garment, for all that do so are an abomination unto the Lord thy power. So essentially she broke that wrong down. All right. And again, she pronounced the words wrong. All right, but I just want to get some edification on this topic. Lord's will, this is a beautiful edification through the Spirit. All right, and again, I'm gonna get this right here. All right, it says I got a quick Google search. It says women started wearing pants more regularly in the 20th century, and it's ultimately because women are to wear dresses. All right, so it says women started wearing pants more regularly in the 20th century, with the mid-20th century seeing their widespread adoption, while some women wore pants in the 19th century for dress reform. It says reform, all right, because ultimately, women wasn't really wearing pants like that, that's a more modern or contemporary type of thing. It says in practical reasons, like cycling, they became more socially acceptable during World War II during women's increased participation in the workforce, according to fashion historians. All right, so women started wearing pants most recently. All right, not to be over righteous, a woman can wear pants, you see, but according to the law, all right, women are not supposed to be wearing pants like that. All right, so let's get a couple more scriptures. All right, this is this is Ayawab, Job chapter we get chapter 38, and we'll get verse 3. It says, "Gird up now thy loins like a man, for I will demand of thee, and answer thou me." So ultimately, when we come into this truth, all right, in order to be, a man to the Lord, we have to be a man first. All right, and men ultimately have intestinal fortitude. All right, but what does this word gird go into? All right, it says gird up. All right, so it says encompass. It says metaphorical of strength, going into that intestinal fortitude. So it says be girded, to hold, to clasp. It says gird oneself for war, because she also mentioned that it goes into war type of garments as well, which it does, you see, but it also encompasses pants as well. All right, so it says a primitive root, to belt, to bind, to compass, about, gird up with. All right, right here it says to bind around. It says to be girded. It says to be strong, robust. It says gird up thy loins. All right. It says to gird oneself, to prepare for battle, because men are the ones, that prepare for battle. And when you think about battle type of a battle type of dress, no matter what type of time period it is, whether it's now, whether it was in the ancient world, the men had the belt. All right, because what do you gird yourself up with? All right, with a belt, So that same ideology and with that same mindset, all right, this can also apply for pants, you see, because that's why, again, going back to the saying in the world, who wears the pants in a relationship? The man is supposed to wear the pants in a relationship. The man is supposed to be the only one that's wearing the pants, you see. And men are supposed to be the only one that ultimately, wear that belt, because in order to, gird up, all right, ultimately, you would have to be wearing some type of pants, So let's get a couple more. Let's get that 1 Samuel chapter 17. All right, we'll give verse 39 because she pulled it out as well. But this is 1 Samuel chapter 17. We'll give verse 39. It says, "And David girded his sword upon his armor, and he essayed to go, for he had not proved it. And David said unto Saul, I cannot go with these, for I have not proved them. And David put them off of him." Let me get this in the NLT. It says David put it on, strapped the sword over it, So in order to strap a sword, you have to gird it. All right, let me get this word for gird. It should go into Azar, or it says Chagar. All right, and it says to gird, put on a belt. All right, men put the belts on. It says as a belt, armor. All right, so in this context, it was being used as armor. You see, but then also you can gird yourself up because you got pants on as well. All right. So going back, it says, "And David girded his sword." I'm gonna get this in the NLT. It says David put it on, strapped the sword over it, and took a step or two to see what it was like, for he had never worn such things before. "I cannot go in these," he protested to Saul. "I'm not used to them." So David took them off again, So ultimately, that goes into the war type of attire, you see, but then also it fits for, regular pants as well, because the men are the ones that wear the pants. All right. And then also it goes for, I'm going to go back to that verse real fast. Dabar Yam, Deuteronomy chapter 22 and verse 5. We get this in the commentary. All right, and it says, because this is every law goes into has a specific reason that is stated. All right, and this is the reason that or one of the reasons that it was stated. Right here it says, "Nor shall a woman," it says "A woman shall not wear anything that pertains to a man, nor shall a man put on a woman's garment, for all who do so are an abomination to the Lord your power." This is anything that pertains to a man. So that goes for anything. It says, in the Old Testament times, men and women wore clothing that was superficially similar. Long robes and wrapping garments were for both sexes. More specifically, women would wear the dresses. But it says, yet the specific type of garments and the way which they were worn made a clear distinction between the sexes. And this command instructs the Most High's people to respect those distinctions, because you don't want to be in a society to where, like a society like America. You got men putting on women's garments, all right, and vice versa for women. It causes for confusion. So it says some have taken this command to be proof text against women wearing pants, and some Christian groups command that women only wear dresses, which women are supposed to wear dresses. All right. It says, yet this is not a command against women wearing a garment and wearing a garment that in some ways might be common between men and women, which they're blurring the lines right there. But women are supposed to wear dresses. According to the law, women are supposed to wear dresses. All right, men, wear the pants. All right, it says, I'm gonna skip down. It says, this. It says the dramatic rise in cross-dressing, transvestitism, androgynous behavior, because all that goes into the cross-dressing that causes for that, and that's why a lot of times Esau put it in the movies. He'll make a man put a dress on, because that emasculates, and then also it pushes forth a vibration for those boy children in that time period. They think that's cool and they start doing that shit, so it says, and gender-bending behavior in our culture is a shocking trampling of this command and will reap a bitter harvest and more perversion and more gender confusion in our culture. And that it really leads to confusion. That's why ultimately it's a abomination. It says all who do so are an abomination to the Lord your power. This command to observe the distinction between the sexes is so important that those who fail to observe this is called an abomination to the Lord. This was not only because cross-dressing was a feature of pagan idolatrous worship in the ancient world, but also because of the terrible cultural price that it paid when it pretended that there is no difference between men and women, and the Lord created two sexes. It's not shit in America, Babylon the Great. They say it's over like 100 genders or something like that. It's only two genders. All right, you got men and you got women. So it says later writers such as Lucian of Samosata and Eusebius speak of the practice of masquerading in the worship Astarte, which that's Ishtar. Apparently, women appeared in men's garment and men in women's garments, which, if I'm not mistaken, it does go into that, because Ishtar is the idol of that what do you call it? Like pretty much the same gender relations, all that funny type of stuff. That's essentially what those that are into those types of things, they are serving the idol Ishtar. All right, so nevertheless, continuing on, let's get Genesis chapter 27 and verse 3. And it says, now therefore take, because she also read this too. It says, now therefore take, I pray thee, thy weapons, thy quiver, and thy bow, and go out to the field and take me some venison. All right, and let's see what this says. Again, it says weapons. All right, but it's that again, that word was kalaya, and it says article, implement, utensil. All right, it says tool, furniture. So it has a manifold application. But Eve then she said that people wasn't going into the words, but this word has a various use of applications, because it also says dress. So your dress goes into attire, so women should not be wearing that which pertains, to a man. All right. So continuing on, which we got the scriptures in there, the commentary provided, some elaboration, but let's get this as well, because she had pulled this. This is we'll get Exodus, Shamwath, chapter, where we at? Exodus chapter 20 and verse 26. And it says, neither shalt thou go up by steps unto mine altar, that thy nakedness be not discovered thereon. So ultimately the priests, all right, which were men, they had to wear the pants, all right, when they, were performing, their duties. All right. So we'll also get this. This is Exodus Shamwath chapter 28, and we'll get verse 42. And it says, and thou shalt make them linen breeches to cover their nakedness from the loins even unto the thighs they shall reach. So again, the priest was commanded to wear pants. All right, that was essentially that was ordained by the Lord. It says nothing about women wearing pants. All right, that's essentially Eve trying to push forth what she would like. She wants to be able to do what she wants, you see. But this thing is not about doing what you want. Scripture say let all things be done decently and in order. All right, so it's in order for men to wear pants, all right, and women to wear dresses, which, we want to be over righteous, but for truth's sake, all right, just going into the law, all right, men wear the pants, all right, women wear dresses, all right. So just like women, they wear head wraps, all right, and men, we aren't to cover our heads, when we're praying and prophesying, all right. So she also got that word for breeches, which that goes into the word for pants or trousers. She said makana, but it would actually be makanas. All right, so that goes into the trousers. All right, then it says a priestly undergarment. That essentially again that goes into the priestly attire. All right, so I got one more and that'll be it. But this is First Timothy. Let me see. First Timothy chapter 2, we get verse 11. And it says, let the woman learn in silence with all subjection. Let's get this word for subjection. So it says the act of subjecting, obedient subjection. It says subordination. All right, let's see this root word. It says to arrange, to subordinate. All right. So she's supposed, going back, to her, it says, I'm going to keep going down. It says to subject, put in subjection, to subject oneself, obey, to submit to one's rule, to yield to one's admonition or advice. It says this word was a Greek military term meaning to arrange troop divisions in military fashion under the command of a leader in non-military use. It was a voluntary attitude of giving in, cooperating, assuming responsibility, and carrying a burden, So if I'm not mistaken, in her profile, she had mother and wife, So she's supposed to be listening to her husband. That's her leader. Her job is not to prophesy, because she went all the way off, all right, ultimately, and saying, women can wear pants, all right, or she went off, essentially saying that the Lord said that women can wear pants. All right. She's supposed to be in subjection, listening to her husband. All right. So yeah, just want to go into that. I don't want to that was a beautiful edification through the spirit. Yash Laila Tawab as well. You have a good night. Washalam lakam, which is peace unto you all. Shalom, shalom.